Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why am I so stressed when I can't even change what's happening? Most of what weighs us down doesn't actually belong to us. Think about it. How much of your mental energy is spent worrying about someone else's opinion of you, replaying a past mistake you can't undo, stressing about a future that hasn't even happened yet? And here's the hard truth. The more we focus on what we can't control, the more we surrender control over the one thing that truly matters, ourselves. We all do it. We all try to manage everything. Our relationships, our image, our timelines, the chaos of life itself. We think, if I could just fix this, then I'd feel at peace. If they just understood me, if I could predict how this will turn out, if I could avoid every mistake. But all that control, it's just an illusion. Pushpin the Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago. Epictetus once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." Let that sink in. It's not life itself that breaks us. It's our refusal to accept that some parts of life aren't ours to bend. We exhaust ourselves chasing control in all the wrong places. And we neglect the only place where real control lives, within. The day your mindset shifts from, how can I control this, to how can I respond to this with clarity, that's the day your peace begins to grow. Direct hit peace doesn't come from managing every variable around you. It comes from recognizing, this is mine, this is not. This I can act on, this I must release. And that distinction, that's the birth of strength. Not brute strength, not control over everything strength, but quiet, unwavering internal strength. Let me give you an example. You're stuck in traffic. You're late. You feel your chest tight and your jaw clench. You're blaming the cars, the lights, the universe, but nothing changes. You're still sitting there. Now imagine this. You take a breath. You say to yourself, this is out of my hands, but how I handle this moment, that's still mine. And suddenly, you're not a prisoner of the moment anymore. You're the one in charge again. This isn't about denial. This is about choosing your peace over your panic. It's about training your mind not to rule the world, but to rule yourself. Because the world, it will always have noise. There will always be traffic, disappointment, uncertainty, but inside you there can be calm. If you stop trying to control everything outside of you and start mastering everything inside. Clapper board, so here's a question I want you to carry today. What am I trying to control right now that was never mine to control in the first place? And when you get your answer, let it go, not because you're giving up, but because you're finally waking up, because the peace you're looking for. It doesn't begin when life finally makes sense. It begins the moment you stop trying to force it to. Let me ask you something that might sound simple, but it runs deep. How much of your day is spent trying to control what was never yours to control in the first place? Think about it. From the moment we're born, we learn to influence the world around us. We cry to get attention. We throw tantrums to get our way. We believe, without even thinking, that if we push hard enough, life will bend to our emotions. But then we grow up, and that desire to control doesn't go away. It just changes shape. Instead of throwing tantrums, we carefully curate our image. We obsess over how others perceive us. We try to plan every detail of our future, control outcomes, force peace, push success, even demand happiness. As if life owes us something if we try hard enough. But here's the paradox. The more you grip life tightly, the more it slips through your fingers. Scroll the Stoics knew this long ago. Epictetus put it bluntly. There is only one way to happiness. Stop worrying about things beyond your control. It's not a poetic quote, it's a warning. Because when you chase what's outside your influence, you're not gaining peace, you're sacrificing it. And we see this every day. You're late for a meeting, stuck in traffic. You clench your jaw, you curse under your breath, your stress spikes. But none of that frustration moves the cars. None of that rage makes the traffic go faster. So what does it actually do? It multiplies your suffering. Now imagine you pause, you breathe. You whisper to yourself, this isn't mine to control, but my reaction is. That one breath, that one moment of clarity becomes your turning point. You don't control the situation, but you just took back control over yourself. And that is real power. Water Wave hears something important. It's not events that disturb us. It's how we interpret those events. Someone ignores your message, you assume they're mad. A plan fails and you think, I'm a failure. But what if neither of those things is true? What if the stress isn't from the situation, but from the story you've attached to it? That's why the Stoics believed that letting go isn't weakness. It's strength in disguise. It's not surrender, it's discipline. We live in a world that changes constantly. The weather shifts, people leave, markets crash, life moves in unpredictable waves. But you, your breath, your principles, your response, these are your anchor. You don't need to control the storm when you've trained yourself to hold the wheel. So here's the challenge. Next time you feel that surge of frustration or fear, stop, ask yourself, am I trying to control something that was never mine to carry? If the answer is yes, let it go. Not because you don't care, but because you finally realized your energy is too valuable to waste on what was never yours. And in that act of release, you'll discover a different kind of freedom, a quiet kind, one built not on power over the world, but on mastery of the self. Let me say something that might hit a little close to home. Trying to change other people will drain the life out of you. Have you ever found yourself replaying a conversation in your head, thinking, if I had just said it this way, maybe they would have understood? Or bending over backwards, reshaping yourself, just hoping that someone would treat you better, value you more, see you differently. We've all done it, because deep down, we think if we just try a little harder, love a little louder, explain a little clearer, we'll finally get the result we want. But here's the truth that sets you free. You can't control how people feel. You can't control how they act. And you certainly can't control what they choose to become. And the more you try to, the more you exhaust your soul. That illusion of control becomes a silent thief, stealing your energy, your peace, even your sense of self-worth. Pushpin the Stoics taught us something radical and liberating. You are not responsible for how others respond. You are responsible for what's yours, your attention, your attitude, your choices, your reactions. That's where your real power lies. But we forget that. We step into situations trying to fix, persuade, rescue, manage, and slowly, we trade our inner clarity for external approval. Let me give you a real-world example. You send a thoughtful message to someone you care about. No reply, days pass, silence. What happens next? You start spinning stories. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad at me? Should I follow up again or say nothing? That mental storm, that's what happens when we try to control something we never could. Now, flip the script. What if instead you said to yourself, I showed up with honesty and kindness. That's my part, the rest isn't mine. It's not cold, it's clear. And clarity is the antidote to emotional exhaustion. Seedling here's the mindset shift. Lead when it's your role to lead. Act with intention when action is needed. But release the outcome when it's no longer yours to hold. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do in a moment of chaos is to not engage with it. Ask yourself this the next time you're frustrated, anxious, or spiraling emotionally. What am I trying to control right now? That was never mine to begin with. And when the answer shows up, let that be your cue to pause, breathe, and come back to yourself. Your job is not to rewrite other people's stories. It's to live yours with integrity. Direct hit so the next time you feel tempted to over-explain, overthink, or overgive, just to get a certain response. Stop and remind yourself, peace isn't found in changing others. It's found in reclaiming the power you gave away trying to. You're not here to manipulate the world into loving you. You're here to love yourself enough to stop trying. There's a kind of power that doesn't shout. It doesn't seek attention. It doesn't try to win every argument or dominate every room. It's quiet. It's still. But it's the kind of power that holds firm when everything else is falling apart. Let's talk about that kind of strength today. The strength that lives within you. You see, most people think power comes from controlling the world around them, from having influence, authority, or status. We chase after job titles, perfect plans, approval, and predictability because we believe, if I can just get everything to go the way I want, I'll finally feel okay. But here's the truth. You can't control the world. And you never could. People change. Plans fall apart. Outcomes don't always match your intentions. And yet, there's one form of control that remains completely in your hands. Control over yourself. Scroll Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, philosopher, and perhaps one of the most powerful men in history, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Let that sink in. Real strength isn't about controlling your environment. It's about mastering your mind within that environment. It's the discipline to pause instead of reacting. It's the ability to stay calm when others lose their cool. It's choosing silence when your ego wants to argue. It's walking away, not to prove a point, but to protect your peace. You don't need to broadcast that kind of power. You just live it, and people feel it in your presence. Let me ask you, have you ever met someone who didn't say much, but when they spoke, you listened? Someone who didn't need to prove anything, yet carried themselves with such clarity that you trusted them immediately. That's the power we're talking about. Not showy, not loud, but rooted, grounded, real. Compass, the thing is, this kind of power isn't built overnight. It's built in the small, daily choices, waking up when you said you would, finishing the task even when it's boring, taking the high road when you could have taken revenge, saying no when you're tempted to betray your values. These are the moments that build unshakable character. And the more you act from intention rather than impulse, the more solid you become. It's easy to think that real strength looks like dominance, but the strongest people I've ever known were the calmest in the chaos, not because life was easier for them, but because they stopped trying to control the uncontrollable and started mastering themselves. So the next time you're in a moment of frustration, before you snap, react, or spiral, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, am I acting from power or from panic? Am I leading myself or being led by emotion? Direct hit, because your true strength isn't in how loudly you can respond. It's in how intentionally you choose to. Let the world move the way it does, but you stay rooted, you stay clear, and when you do, you'll start to notice something profound. The less you need to control the world, the more powerful you become within it. Let me ask you something that most people never pause to consider. What if you're not tired from what you're doing, but from what you're carrying in your mind? Think about it. We often say, "I'm exhausted," but it's not because we ran a marathon or climbed a mountain. It's because we spent the whole day replaying an argument from last week, worrying about a future that hasn't arrived, or overanalyzing someone else's behavior, as if that would somehow give us control. Brain, the truth is, you're not tired because of how much you're doing. You're tired because of how much you're thinking about the wrong things. And those thoughts, they're not helping. They're leaking your energy, one silent drop at a time. Let me break it down. Every time you replay a conversation that's already over, energy lost. Every time you imagine a worst-case scenario that may never happen, energy drain. Every time you try to decode someone else's silence or attitude, another leak. It's like leaving the windows open during a storm and wondering why the floor is soaked. You're pouring your mental energy into things that don't belong to you. And over time, you forget what it even feels like to be present, to feel light, to breathe freely. Now here's the shift. You don't need more energy. You just need to stop giving it away to what doesn't serve you. Start small. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me or just exhausting me? Is this worry mine to solve, or is it just noise in my mind? You see, most of us don't need more hours in the day. We need fewer leaks in the hours we already have. And this is where mental clarity becomes an act of discipline. You don't let strangers walk into your home uninvited, right? So why let any random fear, drama, or memory walk into your head and sit on the couch all day? Your peace of mind is your home. Treat it like sacred ground. Protect it, guard it, curate what enters. Here's an example. Someone disrespects you. You could replay it 1,000 times, vent to 5 different friends, spiral into resentment. Or you could pause, acknowledge the hurt, set a boundary if needed, and move on. One of those paths drains you. The other restores you. And that's the core of reclaiming your energy. It's not about pretending things don't affect you. It's about choosing what deserves your reaction and what simply doesn't. Direct hit. Imagine if every time you felt triggered, anxious, or restless, you paused it and asked, is this mine to carry? Because not every burden belongs in your hands. Some of them are just passing clouds. You don't need to grab them. Just let them pass. Reclaiming your energy is not selfish. It's responsible. Because when you're centered, you show up better, you think clearer, you speak with purpose. And most of all, you move through life with a kind of calm that doesn't come from doing less. It comes from carrying only what's truly yours. So from now on, protect your peace like you protect your home. Not everything deserves a seat at your mental table. Let's talk about one of the most painful illusions we carry through life. The belief that we can set boundaries, not ultimatums. Boundaries protect peace. Ultimatums demand obedience. Speak your truth, but don't force them to listen. Because if someone only hears you when you beg, that's not connection, it's control in disguise. Here's what it looks like in real life. You've had the same conversation a dozen times. Nothing changes. You keep hoping, if I just find the right words, maybe this time. But deep down, you already know, they've heard you. They just don't want to act on it. That moment right there, that's your opportunity to stop fighting for someone else's growth and start protecting your own. You are not here to save people from their own resistance. You are here to walk in truth, in alignment, and with compassion for them and for yourself. Direct hit. So what does letting go really mean? It doesn't mean closing your heart. It means opening your eyes. It means seeing people clearly, not for who you wish they were, but for who they are right now. And it means asking the hard question. Am I staying because I believe in love, or because I'm afraid to lose the illusion? Letting go is not cruel, it's clarity. It's not apathy, it's wisdom. Because true peace doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from releasing your need to. So today, if there's someone in your life you're trying to fix, to change, to rescue, pause and ask yourself, who am I becoming in the process? Because you deserve love that doesn't require you to abandon yourself. You deserve relationships that feel like freedom, not emotional labor. Let go, not out of anger, not to prove a point, but because your peace matters more than their potential. Let's begin with a simple truth that we often resist. Most of our suffering doesn't come from what happens. It comes from our refusal to accept what is. We wish life were different. We replay moments, hoping for a better version. We hold on to what should have been instead of dealing with what actually is. And that resistance, that fight against reality, is what keeps us stuck, bitter, exhausted. But here's the thing most people misunderstand. Acceptance is not giving up, it's waking up. Scroll, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." It's a simple statement, but it carries deep wisdom. It reminds us that life is a dance between effort and surrender, between what you can influence and what you simply must face. So what does real acceptance look like? It looks like losing a job, and instead of spiraling into "why me?" you say, "Okay, this happened, what now?" It looks like grieving a relationship that ended, not by pretending it didn't matter, but by allowing yourself to feel it fully, and then choosing to move forward. It looks like receiving a diagnosis, facing a delay, enduring a disappointment, and instead of wishing it away, you meet it with courage and clarity. Direct hit, because here's the truth. You can't change what you refuse to face. And you can't take wise action if you're stuck in denial. Too often, we try to rewrite reality with our emotions. This shouldn't have happened. This isn't fair. This isn't what I planned. But life doesn't respond to our shoulds. It responds to our choices. Acceptance isn't passive, it's powerful. It doesn't mean you like the situation, it means you're brave enough to see it clearly. And in that clarity, something opens. Your energy returns, your mind quiets. You stop wrestling the storm and start navigating it. Let me give you a personal example. There was a time I held on to a should-have-been version of a relationship. I kept hoping they would change, that things would go back to how they were. And for months, I wasn't really living. I was just mentally stuck in a chapter that had already closed. It wasn't until I said to myself, "This is where it is, not where it could have been," that I started healing, not because I liked the ending, but because I finally stopped resisting it. Light bulb acceptance is the doorway to wisdom. It says, "This is the ground I'm standing on. So how do I move from here?" It's choosing to build your life from truth, not illusion. So here's the challenge. Is there something in your life you've been fighting against? A situation you wish were different? A reality you've refused to face? If so, pause, breathe, and ask, what would happen if I stopped resisting? Not because you agree with it, not because you wanted it, but because it's here, now. And when you meet reality as it is, you free up the most powerful thing you have, your ability to respond with wisdom. Remember this, you don't need to approve of everything to move forward, but you do need to accept where you're standing. If you ever want to walk in the direction of peace, let's cut through the noise for a second. In a world where everything feels out of control, your greatest power will always be this. You control your thoughts, you control your actions, nothing more and nothing less. It sounds simple, right? But when was the last time you actually stopped and asked, is this thought worth holding on to? Is this action aligned with who I want to be? Most of us live on autopilot. We react without pausing. We think without questioning. We act out of impulse instead of intention. But here's the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. And you are not your emotions. You are the one who chooses what to do with them. Push-pin control doesn't mean suppressing what you feel. It means learning how to redirect it. You feel anger, that's human. But do you lash out? Or do you pause, breathe, and respond with clarity? You feel envy, that's natural. But do you let it grow into bitterness? Or do you use it as a sign to realign with your own goals? That space between what you feel and how you act, that's where mastery lies. Let me put it this way. If your mind is a car, then your thoughts are the engine, but you are the driver. And every time you react blindly, you hand over the wheel to emotion. But when you respond with awareness, you stay in the driver's seat. Direct hit Marcus Aurelius said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And what does strength look like in real life? It looks like choosing not to send that angry text. It looks like walking away from gossip instead of feeding it. It looks like holding your tongue, not because you're weak, but because you've already won the battle inside. This is how emotional maturity is built. It's not about being emotionless. It's about choosing what kind of person you want to be, even in the heat of the moment. It's about shifting from being a reactor to being a creator, from letting life push you around, to meeting life with calm, intention, and personal truth. Light bulb, and here's the secret no one talks about. You're not a victim of your mood. You're not at the mercy of every thought that pops into your head. You're not defined by how others act. You're defined by how you show up. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause, don't ask, how do I control this situation? Ask, what do I control in this moment? If it's not your thought, let it pass. If it's not your action, let it go. But if it is yours, own it, choose it, move with it. Clapperboard, because at the end of the day, peace doesn't come from managing everything around you. It comes from mastering the only thing that ever belonged to you in the first place. Yourself. Here is something most of us need to hear, especially in times like these. Chaos is not the enemy. It's inevitable. What matters is how you process it. Life will always be messy, unexpected, loud. People will say things they shouldn't. Plans will fall through. The world won't pause just because you're tired. And yet, some people seem to move through it all with a quiet kind of strength. They're not untouched by difficulty, but they're undisturbed by it. Have you ever wondered why? Because they've trained their minds, not to absorb everything, but to filter what matters. Brain, you see, most people are like sponges. They absorb every emotion, every opinion, every piece of bad news. They take in every comment, every look, every outcome. But the Stoic is a filter. Not everything gets in. Not every insult is kept. Not every storm is swallowed whole. Let me put it like this. When someone disrespects you, your first reaction might be anger. But a Stoic doesn't act on the first emotion. They pause. They ask, is this really about me, or is it about them? Does this require my energy, or just my awareness? Pushpin, and that pause, that's where wisdom begins, because it creates distance between what happened and how you choose to respond. It's the opposite of reactivity. It's intentional living. Here, that's what most people don't realize. It's not the event that causes your suffering. It's the meaning you attach to it, the silence after a text message, the change in someone's tone, the promotion you didn't get. It's not the moment that breaks you. It's the story you tell yourself about what it means. So what if you rewrote that story? What if instead of spiraling, you filtered? You asked, is this true? Is this useful? Is this even mine to carry? Because here's the truth. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every situation requires your explanation. And not every battle is yours to fight. Light bulb wisdom means knowing what to hold on to and what to release. It means filtering chaos with clarity. Let me give you an example. You walk into a room and someone gives you a cold look. Your mind immediately says, they don't like me. I must have done something wrong. But stop. Maybe they just had a bad day. Maybe it had nothing to do with you. Maybe it's not worth your peace. That's what wisdom offers you. The ability to stay calm, even when things don't make sense. Not by ignoring the world, but by choosing what you allow to influence your inner space. Direct hit. So here's a simple challenge for the week ahead. When something triggers you, don't react immediately. Pause, question, filter, ask, is this worth my peace? If the answer is no, let it go, because your energy is precious. And the more you protect it, the more grounded, focused, and free you become. You don't need to carry every weight that shows up at your door. You just need the wisdom to know which ones to let in. Let me ask you something that might challenge what you've always believed. What if surrender isn't weakness, but wisdom in action? We live in a world that celebrates force. Push harder, hold on tighter, don't back down, never let go. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stop fighting what's already here, not in defeat, but in clarity. Scroll Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." It's one of the most powerful truths I've ever heard, because what he's really saying is this: you can move with life or be dragged by it. And the difference lies in your willingness to accept what is, rather than constantly resisting it. Now, let's be clear. Surrender is not passivity, it's not laziness, and it's definitely not giving up. Surrender, in the Stoic sense, is a disciplined recognition of reality. It's the decision to stop wasting energy fighting something you cannot change, and instead use that energy to respond wisely. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're swimming in the ocean and a strong current pulls you. Your first instinct is to fight it, right? But the harder you struggle, the more exhausted and panicked you become. Now imagine you pause. You surrender to the current, not in fear, but with awareness. You stop wasting energy and start floating. You breathe. You regain composure. And from there, you can navigate your way back to safety. That is surrender, not collapse, but strategy. Direct hit in daily life, it might look like this. You lose a job unexpectedly. You could spiral into, "This shouldn't have happened." Or you could say, "It did happen, what now?" You face a breakup. Instead of holding on to what's gone, you let the pain in. You honor the loss, and then slowly you start walking forward again. This is how you reclaim energy, because resisting reality drains you, but accepting it, that frees you. Light bulb, think of how often we say things like, "This isn't fair. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't how it was supposed to go." And maybe that's all true. Surrender doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. It means you direct your energy toward what can be shaped and release what's already written. And sometimes, just sometimes, life gets lighter not because it got easier, but because you stopped gripping so tightly. Clapper board, so here's the question. Is there something in your life you've been resisting? A situation you've been fighting? A truth you've refused to face? What would it look like if you stopped pushing and started pivoting? If you stopped asking, "Why is this happening?" and instead asked, "How can I meet this moment with strength?" Surrender is not stepping away from power, it's stepping into it. Because when you stop resisting what is, you start discovering what's possible. Let me share a simple truth that could quietly change your life. Every moment offers a fork in the road. One path leads to reaction, the other to response. One is automatic, the other is intentional. And that small gap between the two, that's where your power lives. How often do we react without thinking? Someone cuts us off in traffic, we snap. Someone criticizes us, we get defensive. An email rubs us the wrong way, we fire back a response we later regret. We all do it because it's easy, because it feels fast, because it feels real in the moment. But here's the catch. What feels real in the heat of emotion often isn't true once the storm passes. Pushpin, the Stoics, taught this over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, said, "Let reason lead the way, not emotion." And yet today, with notifications pinging, news flooding in, and emotions high, how often do we let reason take the backseat? Here's the shift. You don't have to respond instantly. You don't have to obey every emotion. You can pause, breathe, observe, and then choose, because when you pause, you give your higher self a chance to speak. And that's not weakness, that's mastery. Light bulb, let's break it down. Reaction is instinctual. It's fast, emotional, and often based on ego. It says, I must defend myself. It acts before it understands. Response, on the other hand, is conscious. It's measured, rooted in values, and guided by clarity. It asks, what outcome do I really want here? Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine your partner forgets something important. Your reflex might be to lash out. You never care, or you always do this. But if you pause, you might remember they've had a hard week. They didn't forget out of malice. And maybe what you truly want isn't to win, but to reconnect. That single moment of pause can protect your peace, deepen your relationships, and build your character. Direct hit, because here's the deeper truth. How you respond shapes who you become. You don't build wisdom in grand speeches. You build it in the quiet seconds between stimulus and response. You don't earn freedom by avoiding difficulty. You earn it by not letting your emotions chain you to regret. And you don't develop strength by suppressing your feelings. You develop it by directing them, by choosing not to be owned by them. So the next time you're triggered, don't ask, how do I make this go away? Ask, who do I want to be in this moment? That question alone can reroute your day, your conversation, even your life. Clapperboard, remember, every emotional spark doesn't have to become a wildfire. Sometimes, strength is the space you hold between the urge to react and the choice to respond. Your freedom isn't in controlling others, it's in mastering yourself. What if I told you the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest, the richest, or the most admired, but the one who quietly leads themselves? In a world obsessed with control, controlling others, controlling outcomes, controlling appearances, we often forget that true power doesn't come from domination, but from discipline. Scroll Epictetus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, said it clearly. No man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. It's having the strength not to be ruled by your impulses. It's waking up when your alarm rings, even when your bed begs you to stay. It's keeping your word, even when no one else is watching. It's choosing silence over shouting, because your peace is more valuable than your pride. That is power. But here's the thing. Self-mastery isn't built in bold declarations. It's built in the unseen moments, the little decisions that stack up quietly over time. Light bulb, you show up to the gym when it's raining. You finish the project you said you'd do, even when motivation fades. You resist the urge to gossip. You choose clarity over chaos, purpose over comfort. Most people think discipline is restrictive, but ask anyone who's truly free. They'll tell you, discipline is the door to freedom, because when you can trust yourself, when you know you'll do what you said you'd do, you move through life with confidence that doesn't need to prove itself. Direct hit, think about this. You don't need to control your coworkers. If you control how you show up, you don't need to force the outcome. If you trust your daily actions, you don't need to dominate conversations. If you're rooted in quiet strength, the world teaches us to win by overpowering. Stoicism teaches us to win by mastering the only thing that's truly ours. Our mind, our choices, our reactions. Let me ask you, what would change if you showed up for yourself the way you show up for others? If your inner voice was the leader, not the follower, of your emotions? Because when your habits align with your values and your actions reflect who you want to become, you don't just move forward, you rise. Pushpin, you don't need a title to lead. You don't need applause to be powerful. You just need to keep showing up for yourself, especially when it's hard, especially when no one sees it, especially when no one claps for it. That quiet, consistent effort, that's the foundation of unshakable strength. Clapperboard, so here's your reminder. You don't have to control the world. You just have to control you, your thoughts, Your actions, your focus. Because in a chaotic world, the one who leads themselves leads everything. Let me leave you with something to sit with, not just today, but every day that life feels like too much. Peace doesn't come when life is quiet. It comes when you stop fighting what was never yours to control. We've been taught that peace is something we'll find out there, in a job well done, in a perfect relationship, in the day when everything finally goes as planned. But life rarely stays quiet for long. Plans change, people disappoint, storms roll in, sometimes one after another. So the real question becomes, how do you stay calm when nothing around you is? The answer, as simple as it sounds, lies in one place, within. Because there's one truth that's never changed throughout history. From the ancient Stoics to modern thinkers, you can't control the waves, but you can learn to steady your ship. Person male, and it starts with the basics. Control your breath, before words fly, before decisions are made. A single breath can change the whole direction of your day. Control your thoughts, not by pretending everything's okay, but by choosing which thoughts are worth keeping and which are only noise. Control your actions, because your character is not measured by what happens to you, but by how you show up when it does. Light bulb, think of it this way. A storm can rage around a mountain, but the mountain stays still. That's what self-mastery looks like. And no, it doesn't mean you'll never feel anxious, frustrated, or overwhelmed. It means you'll recognize those feelings for what they are. Temporary. It means you'll stop giving power to every external force that tries to shake your center. Direct hit, so if you're tired, not just physically but mentally, tired of carrying battles that don't belong to you, tired of controlling outcomes that were never in your hands, then maybe it's time to put the weight down. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise, because peace isn't passive. It's an act of choosing where to place your energy and where to withdraw it. When you stop arguing with reality, you free up space for acceptance. When you stop reacting to everything, you create room for clarity. When you stop trying to control everyone else, you finally come home to yourself. Pushpin, here's a truth that changed my life.